Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Long Game. I'm Brent Schafer. Along with me is Tyler Pearson. We're both certified financial planners at HFG Trust, sharing conversations that we're having with our clients, reminding them life's a long game. Enjoy the ride. Tyler, how you doing, man?
Doing good, Brent. It's been a little while since we were recording together, so it's good to be back.
Yeah, good to be back. I'm excited about the topic today. We've got a fun one. I think you came up with this one, so why don't you kick it off and get it started?
Yeah, no, I came up with it. So anything good, I get the credit. Anything bad, we're gonna pretend like I didn't come up with it. No, the goal for today's episode is to talk about 5 things that wealthy people do well. And so I'll read off something that we talked about that we think wealthy people do well. Hopefully it's something that the listeners can learn from. If it's something you're doing, then obviously keep doing it. If it's something you're not doing, just think about, hey, where does that fit in for my life? So I'll let Brent kind of chime in on anything that I talk about. And I feel like we're on a podcast called The Long Game. What better place to start than wealthy people typically have a long-term mindset? Brent, do you have anything to touch on there?
I think having a long-term mindset just prepares you to be thinking about the future, thinking about what is to come. I mean, if tomorrow doesn't matter, then why do we do a lot of the things that we do? Why not just, I don't know, eat cookies and ice cream for every meal, right? It's like, no, we need to stay healthy. We've got a future. There are things coming that we need to prepare for. So that long-term mindset, I think, again, life is a delicate balance of things that we do today to enjoy ourselves, but then things that we put off or delay gratification so that our future selves can have better outcomes. I think when you start to evaluate those things in your life, it leads itself towards a long-term mindset. So that's kind of my opinion or take on it, is just a good mix of what we can do today to have fun in our lives, but then also knowing that, the future is coming and we do need to set a little bit aside so that we have a better future.
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head. One thing that I'd maybe add, or, just add to what you said is, obviously you mentioned the importance of still enjoying life, having fun today. We don't know what tomorrow holds. But for the vast majority of people, there's going to be, many 20s, 30s of years left in your lifetime. So it's important that we also have a plan, thinking long-term. One thing from an investing front that I see is when you have a long-term mindset and you know what that money's for, you know that you're invested appropriately for your long-term goals, then it makes the noise, the headlines, the volatility that comes along with investing a lot easier to handle. You're sitting on the 16th tee box of TPC Scottsdale right now. There's some guys, I think we were talking, Scotty Scheffler is not playing very well to start the weekend. It was to start the week, but, even just in his case, sticking with it, there's a good chance he makes the cut, and then makes a push this weekend. Don't hold me to that. Obviously, if he doesn't play well, I'm just an idiot. But number 2, separate emotion from money. So I've got a couple things on this, but I'm going to kick it to you to begin. What does it mean to separate emotion from money?
Yeah, there's a lot of things, right? Humans, Tyler, we have these things called biases. And one of the ones I love talking about is a topic, or it's called activity bias, right? Something happens to us and our fight or flight response kicks in and we need to do something, right? That plays out a lot when people see their portfolios go down, right? The market is falling, prices are going down. Okay, we need to do something. Like, let's get out of this. Let's make some changes, move some things around. And unfortunately, that's kind of one of the worst things that you can do, right? Is when things start falling, is to panic. And yeah, I mean, you really only lock in those losses when you sell. Hopefully you've got your portfolio set up so that's spread across enough industries and countries and companies that we're not worried if, let's say, number 8 in the S&P 500 goes to 0, right? Because we're holding 499 other names. But all is to say, they don't panic. We've got a plan. We know, because these events have happened before, there have been bull markets, there have been bear markets, there have been recessions, there have been crashes. It's happened before, it will happen again, but we're not going to panic because we are prepared for this. Our plan even factors it in.
Yeah, I think one of the things I was talking about with a client earlier was, I view, and I know you do too, a big part of our job as financial advisors is to prevent our clients from making catastrophic mistakes or major investment decisions based on emotion rather than, rational, thought through decision making. And I kind of equate it to like swim lessons as you grow up as a kid. Why do we teach our kids to swim? Because in case they fall into a pool at a friend's house or they fall into the lake, whatever it might be, they don't panic and in turn get themselves into an emergency situation, right? I kind of look at us like the swim instructors for our clients, in the sense that we are in bull markets having conversations with our clients about what it can look like on the other side. What does a market downturn look like? And the goal with that is hopefully when it comes, it's not a surprise and they don't panic. They know how to react. They know that they're still, in a good position for the long run. So,
because every so often it comes up, but we call it the lifeboat drill, right? The market goes down. Let's say that somebody's portfolio goes out of balance, right? And we sit down, craft a plan with our clients. We'll pick a particular investment strategy, 60-40, 70-30, 80-20, whatever it is. In those moments, we don't know where the bottom is as the market's falling, but typically if we're doing that lifeboat drill or that rebalancing, we know that prices have fallen far enough to where, hey, if we started this year at 100 and now we're down 20% and you're buying at 80 cents on the dollar, over the long term, that's probably going to look pretty good when it does rebound and continue to grow.
Right.
One more thing I wanted to add on there.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to number 3, we've got wealthy people typically don't outspend their earnings. This is probably like the number one rule we learn about in Finance 101 or Personal Finance 101. I don't know that there's a ton of stuff that we need to touch on here, but is there anything you want to add to that?
I do think we need to spend a little bit of time here because, you don't outspend your earnings. I think a lot of people know that that's the case, right? Like if I am to grow my net worth, I need to have more money tomorrow than I did today. What people don't realize or factor in is how easy it is to go and spend money. How easy is it to go get a home loan, go get a car loan, go take on those debts? Because people are happy to sell you stuff. They want to make their commissions. They want to close deals. They want to move product. They are happy to give you whatever it is that you want. And if you buy it on credit, they're not looking out for you. They're just trying to sell stuff. It's one of those rules that's super basic in principle, but in practice, it's hard to live by. I know, Tyler, I've bought a couple of new golf clubs in the past year, and hey, they'll manufacture those. And if I want to buy 10 drivers, they'll sell me 10 drivers easily. So I don't know. I think we all fall victim to this one. In the beginning, those are just those fundamental habits that we need to learn, right? We graduate from school. We're kind of off on our own. We are off the payroll. I went to a talk today and one of the guys speaking was talking about one of his children getting off the payroll and, being their own person, their own adult. And at that point, it is the most critical that you kind of lock that down, because it's when you've got the least amount of experience. It's when your income is probably the smallest. And if you can instill that habit just in yourself of, committing to saving, right? Whether it's 5%, 10%, 15% of your income goes to the 401k or just anywhere that it's saved and not spent, that's a habit that just starts. And then as you get those raises, as your income grows, that percentage that you're socking away stays as a savings goal. And I think it just snowballs into a lifelong habit of, gosh, I can't do that. Like I can't afford that. I save some of what I make, and
right.
I'm committed to the future. So I don't know. That was kind of my take on what you said.
Right. No, I think you're right. Part of it for me has always been just because you have the money doesn't mean you can afford it. Mm-hmm. It's easy to tell yourself, oh, I've got $1,000 in the bank. I can buy something that's $500. But it doesn't look like quite as good of a decision when a week later you have a tire pop and you have to spend $200 on a tire, $800 on a set of tires. It's important just to keep yourself honest. There's things that come up in life. I tell clients all the time, it's as simple as just having the money around when emergencies happen. There's going to be things that set you behind, but it's recognizing, hey, this is where I could have done better, and then being resilient enough to work those habits that you talked about that are so important. Just stay committed to those habits and build yourself back up. So once people accumulate wealth, there's something important that a lot of people know about, and I think a lot of people will think it's just insurance, but I think there's more to it than that. I feel like a lot of the wealthier people that we work with, they do a good job of protecting the wealth that they've accumulated. What are some ways that they might do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that insurance is one of them, right? Making sure that you're adequately covered, using it productively. If we get a little door ding or something like that, you don't want to submit a claim to your insurance, but that's just property and casualty. Life insurance, nobody loves to talk about that subject, but just making certain that, if we've got husband, wife, they've got a small family, life insurance really does also come to their aid to potentially pay off the mortgage or any outstanding debts and, support the other spouses. They have to go through what could be potentially traumatic point in their life. So insurance basics, I know that everybody's kind of heard that one. The other one that you talked about was the emergency fund. Life happens, things happen. Need to get some new tires on my car so I can, make it to work so that I can afford to have money, like a job and make money. HVAC goes, I mean, whatever it is, things do happen. We don't want them to, we don't plan for them to happen, but we do need to have that emergency fund. I remember as a kid, right, we had Washington Trust Bank come out and they talked about, hey, having deposits in the bank, they will pay you a little bit they'll pay you interest by having some money socked away, right? And so you've got a couple $100 in, and at that point, I don't know, maybe a savings account yielded 1 or 2, maybe even 3%. Gone are those days, and so now people somewhat feel like, gosh, I've got my emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of expenses. I'm sitting on $20,000-$50,000 in the bank, and I'm getting diddly squawk for it. Like, why are we doing that? Wealthy people are disciplined because they know that things can happen. And the opportunity cost of having cash, right? Like the other side would be if they take it and they go super aggressive with their investments, and maybe they've got a taxable account that, I want to, it's 50 grand. I want it to go work for me. But if we go into a bear market or a decline and they have to sell that at, pennies on the dollar, that's when it hurts just that much more, knowing that we could have had a plan put together and we could have stayed disciplined so that we don't have to sell assets when they are in a significant decline. So that's what comes to mind for me. Anything that I missed?
No, but I don't think you missed anything. I do think one thing I'd add to the benefit of having cash in the bank is this idea that sometimes you do get a return out of cash that's not just the interest that's paid. And that's kind of the opportunity cost that you talked about, the ability to pay for an emergency that pops up instead of selling an investment and taking a loss on that investment. Effectively, you saved yourself money, in that situation. So I think you nailed that on the head. The other thing that kind of helps us flow.
One more thing.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, Tyler. One more thing. The opportunity cost, you're never going, this is a concept, right? And so I'm here like selling the invisible to somebody, to a potential client or to whoever's listening to this, right? And you're never going to know what that invisible return was by having the cash on hand until an event happens. And if it happens to you once, I feel like, you learn from your mistakes and you're more likely to, okay, happened once, I'm not gonna let it happen again. But I think my goal would be that it doesn't have to happen to somebody, and that, they can have an event happen where, okay, maybe it's a 4-5 figure charge. And okay, gosh, thankful that I listened to Tyler and I've got some money in the bank here that's quickly accessible, and that I don't need to go sell investments or borrow from my 401k so that I can afford this. Anyway, it's just one of those things that's conceptually, yeah, sure, that makes sense. But what's the real return of it that you're never going to realize until things actually happen? And here we go. We're just going to say it over and over and over again so that people listen to us, and hopefully we can prevent it that way.
No, I think you're spot on. The last thing on protection, and it kind of flows into our last section, is wealthy people that have an investment balance that's built up. They're very selective and thoughtful in how they invest those funds, right? So they're in essence protecting the funds that they've saved by, not having it invested all in one stock or all in one position, or even just too aggressive for what their situation might be. They're diversified, and that's another form of protection. But it also flows into number 5, which is owning productive assets. And I feel like I hear this tossed around on social media quite a bit. You touched on it with people not wanting to have money in the bank because they want to own productive assets. They want their money to work for them. What's something you see, maybe in a simple term and maybe a little bit more complex terms as well, that wealthy people do on the owning assets that work for them front?
I think the classics are like, you can just take purchasing a house and buying a new car. So a house is typically an appreciating asset, and supply and demand is going to have a factor on that. And I think that, nationwide, we're still behind on housing starts, and, what a full house supply looks like. We're a ways from that. But regardless, a house is typically regarded as an appreciating asset. If you're in it for, let's say, 20, 30 years, it's going to go up in value. So there's one that is generally productive. And then on the other side, you've got a new car, new truck. You buy it brand new, you pay full price for it. Now, I think the average cost of a car is 40 grand, 50 grand. It's brand new. And then it has a usable life. And most of the depreciation happens in the first 5 years of owning a vehicle. And you take out a loan, let's say that you buy that car, and it steadily decreases in value. And eventually, it's not worth much. And what do people do? I think it's 5 to 7 years that they're rotating in and out of these cars, or even worse, they take out a 6-year car loan. They get to the end of that and they're like, cool, I got this thing paid off. Let's go do it again. And really, that's just, those financing charges are kind of the leak in the boat. I mean, one could make an argument that there is a certain cost associated with a vehicle, and you need to get from point A to point B. But just two brief examples, we can go down the rabbit hole. We could probably talk forever on what's productive and what's destructive for your wealth. But generally it is those productive assets are going to be properties. It's going to be owning investments, companies, things that, again, are productive, generate return, whether that be from price change, the income that's generated, or the growth of that asset. So good old pick formula for you there, Tyler. Anything you want to add before we close it out?
No, I think you hit it on the head. Wealthy people are selective in the assets they own, and they typically are buying assets that are going to work for them, and try to stay away for the most part from assets that are going to be a drag on their net worth. Hey, it was great getting back together with you.
I'm going to take a timeout. I'm going to take a timeout, Tyler. I'm going to revoke your privileges, so you're no longer allowed to say hit it on the head.
Oh yeah.
Because we are a golf podcast, I want to have you say hit it on the screws.
Hit it on the screws. I actually probably just should stop saying hit it on the head altogether. I think I said it like 3 times during this episode. So
on the screws, man.
On the screws. Alrighty. Well, you want to close this out, or you want me to?
Go ahead.
It was great talking with you this time, Brent. It's been a
Thanks a lot,
game.
buddy. Bye.